Welcome back students. So, we have discussed in our previous session about job design and job redesign. Today I am going to talk about steps involved in job redesign. So, when it comes to job redesigning, it has commonly used 5-step process. As I mentioned in the previous discussion that it is not a one time process, it is a long term process, and it is an approach that how to reach the root of the job based on its components, description, elements, to what extent it suits well to the employees, and how the employee skills can be enhanced in order to motivate employees and reach the maximum goals. The process of job redesign involves 5 steps. The first is changing reality, individual job analysis, core competency analysis, job redefining, and redesign implementation. Now, in all the 5 steps, every time there is a change, every time there is an alteration, every time there is some modification either in the job components or in an individual employee. Why changes in the job components or an individual employee? Because the aim is to find the best fit and reach the maximum goals. So, if we talk about the first step, that is changing reality, it is about to identify the changes that have already occurred in the market, in the organizational structure, procedures, and how the job has to be altered in order to meet those changes. So, this is the foremost step and very important step if we are talking about job redesign. This phase identifies the changing need and selection of a number of jobs or job categories that are most impacted by the change and therefore should be analyzed for redesigning. For example, if we talk about digital skills, initially it was something where digital skills were not in, but to meet the market competition, organizations have enhanced employee skills by making them more digitally literate and skilled so as to meet the jobs with more accuracy and precision. So, this is a changing reality that digitization is a major change, and how organizations have identified specific jobs which require employees who are supposed to possess some digital skills in order to perform the jobs more accurately. So, this is the first phase of job redesigning, is a changing reality. So, the job redesign becomes relevant when job requirements have changed and need to be updated. Now, this need to be updated is something where employees who are already having skills need to enhance their skills with more further trainings. This can be because tasks are automated and need to be replaced, or because tasks require new skills. So, this is about understanding the changing environment, changing needs, and then creating any jobs through alterations and modifications, that jobs are being performed in a more precise manner. The second phase of job redesigning is the individual or the selected jobs are analyzed. And how they are being analyzed? There are certain methods which are required to analyze the job. It is not that we are just perceiving the job from the outer perspective and we tend to understand with our own hunch. No, there is another process which requires to analyze the jobs in a very technical manner. So, these methods include functional job analysis in terms of having a data where people skills and other practices are required to do the work as recorded. That means, in the first stage, identifying that what kind of job is being performed in what manner, that data has to be there, that one particular job, who is performing, that is which employee is performing the particular job, with how much of skills he or she possesses to perform that particular job. That is functional job analysis. The other is task inventory. The tasks are identified for each task the importance, time spent and frequency are recorded. Again, this inventory will entail that any employee who is performing a task requires how much time to perform that task. For example, assembly line worker, maybe assembly line workers will take 1 hour to manufacture one particular product, and that product is very important. So, to what extent they are maintaining a speed to manufacture the product in minimum hours and maximum products. So, the time spent, the importance and frequency are recorded. The other is job element method. The characteristics of excellent performance are identified to give a more worker oriented view. Identifying best performers for the task who are performing and adding more orientation to the job in terms of motivation. So, job element method here means that whosoever employee is performing the job, to what extent that job has been performed with precision by a particular employee will have a more worker oriented view. That means enhancing his job in a positive way, so that he can be more indulged in the task to perform better. That is job element. Narrative task or function descriptions require interviews with the goal of creating story that explains the key activities. It is about conducting interviews with the employees who are working in the organization and creating a story that explains the key activities. It is from both the ways. It is about interactions between the employee and the organization, that through interviews organizations will come to know about the more details of the task that the employee is performing, and the employees will also inform the organizations about the key activities that they are performing. When they are into this kind of interaction, they tend to understand, the organization tend to get a very clear description of the job that are being carried out in any organization, based on the skills, based on the behavioral aspects, and what more is required, which is being very much deliberately expressed by the employee. And the last is the critical incident method. This zooms in on understanding performance either in a good or bad way and evaluate the context, behaviors and consequences of those behaviors. So, this is absolutely the behavioral aspect of the job to be discussed at organizational level, where in this technique, based on the interactions, based on certain questionnaires or open ended questionnaires, employees tend to express the good and bad aspect of their job, and based on that narratives, based on the data, the organizations tend to identify the weaker and strong points of the particular job and tend to modulate or tend to alter or modify those jobs or job tasks. So, this is how the second phase is being handled in terms of analysis of the job. So, it is basically a very long term functional process where organizations are involved in understanding the job from deep root level. Although, when we are analyzing the jobs, it will identify three aspects. The first is that jobs which are being analyzed will talk about the task which has to be performed. Jobs are rated on how important the tasks are, and third, they inquire about the skills required to do the work properly. So, that is the purpose of job redesigning, to identify what kind of jobs are being already performed, then their jobs are being rated, to what extent the particular job is important to how many employees, and what new skills or addition or deletion or modification is required in order to enhance the job components and motivate employees. So, this is the gist of the second phase, that is job analysis. In the third phase of job redesigning comes core competencies. Now, core competency term is in itself a very holistic term and a broader term, in where organizations talk about the basic competencies that are being expected by the organizations to perform at the base level, where right from the top management to the lower level of management, every employee will have certain competencies to perform the job and keep the organizations functional. So, these competencies require more changes at organization level, so that the overall organization level will also function in a better and enhanced manner. So, many organizations work with clearly defined competencies that apply to everyone. It is not that some basic competencies will be performed by some people and not to be performed by certain people in the organizations. This is the basic competencies that are common to all. These are called core competencies, as they are not function specific. These competencies are required for everyone in the organization, not at the same level, but everyone needs at a basic proficiency. For example, any hotel chain, for example, Four Seasons, as it is mentioned in the example on this slide, what is the basic competency or work value which is core to the whole hotel chain? That is service culture. Right from the top to the bottom, every employee will focus on delivering a culture of service where hospitality is the topmost goal of every employee. This is core competency, and every time this service orientation is being delivered in every decision and action and service and task of that hotel chain. So, this is about the company level competency for a particular hotel and its staff. This is core competency. We can also talk about some other firms and organizations, maybe law, it can be any accountancy firm or financial firm, where they have certain core competencies to provide justice or maintain transparency and avoiding any financial discrepancy among the staff. So, this is a core competency. Once these competencies also weaken at one point, the organizations tend to revise those competencies and make efforts to instill those competencies among all the employees, right from top to bottom. Thus, the changing or updating these company level competencies means that all functions will be affected, and this level of analysis is therefore key in job redesigning. As I mentioned just now, that if one key competency has to be revised, then it has to be revised across the organization, right from top to bottom, and it will affect the whole functioning of the organization. This is the analysis, because sometimes what happens that maybe the employees are skilled, they have optimum level of knowledge, ability and skill to perform the task, but somewhere down the line maybe their core values will fluctuate, it will be weakened, and how to tighten those loopholes will make a drastic impact on the organizational functioning. The fourth phase is all the inputs of the previous phases are used to redefine the jobs. First, second, third, changing reality, job analysis and core competencies. When these changes are being made, so at fourth stage, those changes are being taken into consideration, because those changes are the inputs, and then again the jobs are being redefined. So, this can be a minor redesign, or the job can be combined with others or effectively disappearing. So, when all the three steps are being compiled together as an input in form of changes, then at fourth stage the organization can decide or take into decision or consideration whether certain jobs have to be combined, that is reassembled, or maybe certain jobs will disappear. So, this entails minor redesigning of the jobs, which can be either combined or effectively disappearing, which will have impact and degree to which the job has changed. Different stakeholders will also be involved. So, this will not only have an impact on the job or the task, but on the stakeholders. Now, these stakeholders also include the clients, also include the customers who will be impacted with the changes in the minor redesigning. So, since the key stakeholders are better able to put things into perspective as they understand the nuances of the day-to-day reality better than anyone else. So, at this phase, fourth phase, that is about revising the early three stages and then getting into minor redesigning, it is only possible because stakeholders are the closest assets of the organization who understands that how the organization is working and should work. So, they are deeply impacted or influenced at this stage. So, the most exciting jobs are already occupied, which has its own significance, and they will never be reassembled or modified or disappearing. They will remain as they are, but yes, while fitting the employee with the job will create a person job fit which leads to a more satisfaction. So, certain jobs will remain as it is, but maybe when reshuffling, rescheduling or revising of the job elements has already taken place, then maybe some jobs will has its impact based on the skills of the employees or finding the person job fit between, that is the person and the job. So, once confirmed, the changes to the jobs and roles are often codified in the company's competency framework, and different jobs will be affected differently, but changes must be communicated. So, this change, minor redesigning, will be incorporated in the core competency framework, that these major changes have already taken place and now the organization will function from the new perspective. At this stage, stage 4 requires intense communication based on instilling core competencies and a new way, introducing a new way to perform the task. This is where the last stage comes in, that of the job redesign implementations. So, if we talk about this fourth stage, that is job redefining. Now, here what happens, designing has already changed, and when it has entered the core competency framework, so the jobs are being redefined. It is never communicated that the job has been redesigned. It is always communicated in a way that it is job redefined and how the organization will function in future. Now, once this stage is over, next is how to implement that design. Redesigning has been done, redefining has been done. Now, how to execute that redesigning. This is the last stage, final stage of the implementation phase, which will be officially communicated to different employees and action will be taken. Now, at this stage requires learning and development programs, because when new jobs are created or some jobs have disappeared, then people, that is employee, will fall into different kind of jobs where they need to enhance their skills or even learn new skills that require lot of learning and development, and indulge or engage in these kind of programs, which are now these programs are being offered by organizations itself. So, this includes rigorous training. So, these programs reskill people in the newly required skills, and it may change the criteria based on which people are hired, promoted, compensated and fired. So, this tend to revise the whole organizational process, because initially the policies were different based on the jobs that were existing. Now, the policies, procedures, hiring process, firing process, promotion benefits, everything will be revised based on the new jobs, that is through redesigning. This means that it may also result people to leave the company, because maybe somewhere down the line even employees will not find that fit, the new fit as per their choice, and they will engage in leaving the company. So, this can be voluntary when people do not see themselves fit in the new roles, or involuntary when the company does not believe that a person has the ability to be successful in the new role. So, it is from both the sides, hiring and firing and intention to leave the job, because if new job is being offered which requires rigorous skilling, then maybe the person will not find a fit, or maybe the organization will not find a fit with that particular employee, and in both the cases the employee will have to leave the job. So, the crucial part of this phase is communication. In what manner the change, the redesigning has been communicated, that will impact employees to a larger extent. So, this entails that changes that will impact many people, like updated core values or the redesign of key job roles, will have to be communicated early and clearly, with ample opportunity for people to get involved and develop themselves towards the new reality. So, in what manner the change has been introduced to the employees will help employees to understand and decide whether to stay with the job or not. If they tend to stay in the organization, then they need to prepare themselves to reskill, update or upskill their competencies as per the need for change, and preferably be involved and be motivated to go along with it. So, ultimately job redesigning will entail job redefining and then again motivation. So, it is basically a back and forth and ultimately moving forward to enhance not only the skills, but actually enhance the motivation levels of the employees. So, when we talk about job design as a new component to motivate employees based on job characteristics model, then job redesign is another aspect of motivation which can be introduced in any organization, and it is being introduced in every organization in order to meet global competition and upskill employees and retain and sustain talent, right. Thus, we can say that job redesign is one of the tools in the organizational development toolkit. It is an additional element in the organizational toolkit and a novel element, and when applied, it creates a job that aligns with the needs of the business as well as the environment, because these changes are as per the changes that has already taken place in reality, and how to find the best person job fit in terms of skills and capabilities of the employee. So, once there is alignment in the person job fit, then motivation level goes up. Beside this, it also talks about engagement or indulging in certain other approaches to effective job redesigning, which talks about some new practices such as job enlargement, job enrichment, job rotation, job crafting, relational job design and job simplification. So, engaging in the whole process of job redesign, there are certain effective strategies which need to be pursued in order to bring that change more effective and impactful. We will talk about these approaches in the next slide. So, these approaches are the strategies for redesigning the jobs, and what are those strategies? The first is job rotation, job enrichment, job enlargement, job crafting, job simplification and relational job design. But yes, to mention, the ultimate aim of these strategies of redesigning is in order to increase efficiency and productivity. So, we will talk about these strategies very briefly in the next slide, that is the job rotation. When employees suffer from over routinization, when employee is continuously doing a same job again and again and on day to day basis, then it leads to boredom, it leads to monotony. So, the organizations tend to indulge in an alternative solution to bring down the boredom or monotony to the lowest level through job rotation. It is a periodic shifting of an employee from one task to another with similar skill requirements at same organization level, which is also called cross training. So, maybe the person is performing a one job, but because of boredom or monotony, the organizations can shift that person having the same skill and perform the same skills at another area or department, and that brings change in his routine. This is job rotation or cross training. Now, why this is cross training? Because when any employee who is new to the job will be exposed to the different kind of skills and departments. So, they are being transferred from one department to another, so that they get a very holistic view of the whole organization, that how it works. So, this is job rotation. So, new managers are sometimes rotated through jobs to help them get a picture of the whole organization. For example, at Singapore Airlines, and there is a reason that why Singapore Airlines is among the top rated airline in the world. The reason is that they engage in the strategy of job rotation, where a ticket agent may temporarily take on the duties of a baggage handler and both to be cross trained and to get exposure to different aspects of the organization. Now, when any employee who is getting exposure to the different aspects of the organization, they tend to get that grip that how the organization is working and what are the core competencies that one has to hold on, and ultimately what is being expected at every level. Once they instill all these values and competencies within themselves, ultimately they are on the way and path to perform at their best. So, this is the advantage of job rotation. So, we can say that job rotation has been shown to increase job satisfaction and organizational commitment, because when they are being transferred from one job to another, from one department to another, that adds more interest to them, because there is more interest and novelty in performing different jobs in different departments. So, it reduces boredom, it reduces monotony and increases motivation and understand the work and help employees to understand the work and contribute to the organization, and it may also increase safety and reduce repetitive based work injuries, because sometimes when you are engaged in routine work, we tend to lose a track and where we can also experience some kind of injuries. In that way, job rotation is an effective strategy to job redesigning. But at the same time, it has some drawbacks. The first is it entails lot of training cost, because when an employee is indulged in cross training, the organization has to conduct different kind of training programs in order to adapt new areas or departments. So, this necessitates a round of training and involves lot of cost. Second, in moving a worker into a new position reduces overall productivity for that role. The person is already working on a job for so many years, all of a sudden he is shifted to another job, maybe in different department, that will reduce his overall productivity, because he has to indulge in different kind of upskilling. And the last is supervisors may have to spend more time in monitoring the performances of the rotated employees, that is very time consuming. So, these are the drawbacks of job rotation. The next is job enrichment. The degree to which worker controls the planning, execution and evaluation of the work, it involves adding another layer of responsibility and meaning. Maybe one employee is the star performer, meeting his goals in a very fierce manner, but at the same time, because of his best performance, the organizations can at the same time give him more freedom or discretion to perform his job, and at the same time can also add some more elements in his job. This is job enrichment, that adds more esteem and more responsibility to his work. Job enrichment entails adding high level responsibilities to a job to increase intrinsic motivation, sense of purpose, direction, meaning and intrinsic motivation. As I mentioned that it adds more to your self-esteem, it will add more to your self-respect, you are intrinsically motivated, and at the same time there is more significance to your job because you are performing an identifiable piece of work. So, the components become more important when we talk about job enrichment. For example, adding start to end tasks to a graphic designer's work can allow the employee the opportunity to pitch their ideas directly to the customer and allow greater autonomy in setting project milestones and deadlines. So, the graphic designer owns all the responsibility that how he has to perform the job, along with some more control in the procedure and in the execution and evaluation of the work. This is enrichment. So, obviously under such kind of strategy, the job of a graphic designer has been redesigned. The other is job enlargement. This refers to adding more relevant tasks to a job so the employees has a chance to increase their skill set and knowledge in a related but different area. Maybe software developer will also have to understand the logistics of developing the software, and he has to upskill his knowledge or expertise so that he can have better control on his performance. This is job enlargement. So, this type of job redesign can also help to reduce repetition in the workplace while enabling employees the opportunity to take on more responsibilities. So, one responsibility that already exists is the responsibility of developing a software, and the other responsibility will be of accountancy or taking care of the financial liabilities. So, once these two jobs have been redefined, then it adds more responsibility that enlarges the scope of performing the job. For example, a company may give an architect who specializes in designing office buildings the opportunity to become involved in other types of projects such as designing of a restaurant. So, ultimately area is same, maybe specialization is same, but there is change in expansion, that initially the architect was building only office buildings, now he is into designing restaurants as well. So, this adds more responsibility and the job has been enlarged. This is job enlargement. Job simplification, the act of removing tasks from employees' duties instead of adding more. So, simplifying the jobs, maybe any employees performing the job may undergo some practices which are nullified, which are redundant, which are not required, and when these tasks are removed, this makes the job more simplified. That enhances the motivation level. Maybe those tasks which were not required to be performed were adding more monotony or boredom to the task, but once those tasks have been eliminated, the task becomes more interesting and motivating. This is job simplification, but at the same time also helps to focus on more specific set of tasks so that employee can specialize in a certain area, and sometimes in the process of job simplification, the jobs also disappear. Especially in the current era where AI, digitization has dominated organizations, number of jobs have reduced. So, they have simplified the jobs, but at the same time the jobs are also disappearing. The other is job crafting. This refers to employees engaging in redesigning their own jobs to create greater job satisfaction for themselves. Now, in job redesigning, organizations are redesigning, but in job crafting, employees are redesigning their jobs according to their own comforts. There is more freedom, there is more discretion that how I have to perform my job, and that gives more job satisfaction to an individual. So, this may include rethinking the steps to finishing a task, who the employees interact with regarding to the jobs, and what is the meaning or significance of the task. So, when you are recreating your jobs on your own terms, you will experience that significance. Once there is more discretion to reschedule your task or steps to perform the task, that will add more significance to the job, and the person will be motivated to perform at highest level. For example, a web designer may find it more meaningful to participate in the coding of the website so as to improve the interface to a more user friendly one. Why? Because when the web designer has already rescheduled his task, that makes the job more interesting for himself and makes an objective to make the page more user friendly for the customers, because the person is already experiencing that the task is significant to him. So, this is job crafting. And the last is relational job design. This can be defined as constructing jobs so that employees sees or perceive the positive difference they can make in the lives of others directly through their work. It is outside the work. What you perform, what you create, what you do at work in organizations, how it is impacting the outer world. This entails redesigning jobs based on job characteristics theory is likely to make work more intrinsically motivating and meaningful. So, relational job design is how managers can design work so employees are motivated to promote well-being of the organization's beneficiaries such as customers, clients, patients and employees. For example, Medtronics is an US company who manufactures medical instruments and equipments, and they in their annual meet they tend to invite all the customers and they tend to allow them to express what kind of comfort they have received from that organization in terms of availing those instruments and gadgets that help them to recover from the serious illness. This is relational job design. So, one way to make jobs more processually motivating is to connect employees more closely with the beneficiary of their work by relating stories for customers who have found the company's products or services to be helpful. Now, this kind of service can be in any hospitality industry, it can be in any medical sciences, or it can be any banking sector where services have made the life of the customers, the clients very comfortable and brought a major change in their day to day life. This is relational job design. For example, the medical device manufacturer Medtronic invites people to describe how its products have improved or even saved their lives and shares those stories with employees during annual meetings. That means that work has a major impact on the life of the people outside organization and are contributing to the well-being of the customers and the organizations. So, with its focus on pro-social motivation, so the focus of relational job design is not only pro-social, that is helping others, but it also has a salient topic of corporate social responsibility. That means this includes invitations for employees to volunteer their time and effort, sometimes using the skills they gain on the job for pro-social activities. So, this kind of job redesigning where it is not only pro-social motivation, but also entails corporate social responsibility is ultimately that what you can offer to the society and to the external world through your job. Not engaging in any other activity, but engaging more in your job so that the impact is more powerful outside the organization. So, the research indicates that corporate sponsored volunteer programs enhanced the job characteristics model dimensions of meaningfulness and task significance and motivated employees to volunteer. So, ultimately when we started our discussion with job characteristics model, we are ending up with the same dimensions, but the changes, the trajectory of the changes that has involved in the whole process in terms of not only core job dimensions, but yes, in terms of job redesigning, in terms of strategies, in terms of phases that every job redesigning has to undergo. So, ultimately we are coming back to the same discussion in terms of dimensions of meaningfulness, task significance and motivation to volunteer. So, this is how jobs can also be a source to motivate employees. Jobs should never be considered as a responsibility in a crux manner, but what is that lies inside the job that also motivates the employee. So, it is about not only external, but about internal motivation through the components of job. So, we are through with this discussion. We will meet in the next discussion. Thank you so much.